welcome back to another video with me, JD. You're joining me post the intra-club matches, and we're going to do a bit of a team update. Now, I would have normally done a rundown game-by-game video at this point in the preseason, but unfortunately, I was away for the weekend, and I've had a couple of other work commitments pop up as well, which has made it very hard to go through the games in enough detail to give you a proper review. And so I definitely wouldn't want to lead you on and pretend that I have all the answers. I don't, but I am looking forward to watching this weekend's games. However, I do what many of you do as well, which is when you can't watch all the games yourself, you listen to other people, read other sources, and form opinions like that. So I'm going to combine a little bit of games I did get to watch with the typical research I would do outside of that to hopefully give you a decent idea of some of the plays you should be keeping an eye on post those games. And the other thing I'll be doing is showing you my team beforehand and showing how I've adjusted it since. Don't want to typically overreact with these things too much. So there are certain picks that'll come in and out, and we'll talk through those. And probably also, I'll touch on some that I wasn't really considering, but definitely not right now. But anyway, this is the team as of last video, I believe. And we'll muck around with it a little bit. I think I also showed a version, or I had shown a version of people with Dacos and Young, but let's go through it. So firstly, defense. So Dawson was good. I don't think there's anything wrong with Dawson at all. He copped a bit of a knock in that game from memory. So that was just I think a corky or something got run through, but he was still playing half back, pushing up onto wing a little bit, but the general down in defense, which is a good sign. His scoring should continue with his age and his profile. I see him doing the same, if not improving on it slightly. So there's nothing wrong with Dawson, but he may need to make way for structure. Next up, we've got Yo. He was already a lock in our sides, but I think the weekend showing just proved exactly why that is. When he's at his best, he looks phenomenal, one of the best in the biz. And as long as he doesn't get injured, he should be locked into every single person's side. Caulfield, bit of a concern. He played twos and played all right when he was on the twos, but it does give some doubts over job security, which is a little bit worrying. I've heard some Saints speculate that it was just him being eased back in. So let's see how he goes this weekend. But a little bit more. I thought his job security was fine. It was just whether his body was going to be good, whether his role was going to be good. Now I'm a little bit worried about the job security, which is a bit of a worry. Goda did some okay things, but he was doing that halfback wingy type role. I think he probably only gets a spot in the side as a wing at the moment, just based on all the people they've been trying through halfback, which is a little bit of worry because halfback is ideally where you would have him. So a wait and see on Goda and his role this weekend for sure. Ginby or Ginby. I think it's Ginby. No, it's Ginby. I'm going to have to remember that one for next time. But he had a problem with his toe didn't play, so he's a watch this weekend as well. But given he's the person that's meant to be sharing Yo's role, if Yo's role is that good, then yeah, I think this is probably still an all right pick. McKenna looked very rusty for the Lions. So he was playing in the ones and in that preferred halfback spot, but didn't use the ball particularly well. I don't think he accumulated particularly much either. So this one's a little bit of a watch this week to see how he performs and whether he's actually pickable in our sides. There's a chance he may not be best 22, which is a bit of a surprise really, but hopefully it's just an off game and that's just the rust of him getting back into it. Weddle for the Hawks played up the ground on the wing a little bit, and he was a bit quiet. I mean, he did a couple of nice things with the ball, but yeah, was relatively quiet. So I'm a little bit unsure about this pick at the moment. Obviously, the poor side, you would imagine that he gets games, but whether that's round one or later in the year, we'll see. And then Wilmot, he also played up on a wing, I believe, for the Lions and did an all right job there. So they were missing a few for sure. But yeah, we'll wait. We'll see how that goes this weekend. I mean, it's with these rookies, right? You kind of just get a sign of either heading in the right direction or not, and then you kind of make decisions later based on that. So one that I will put in for now is Cowan from the Blues, who's competing with, I haven't seen this name said either, so I'm going to apologize for butchering in advance, but Chinkota from the Blues as well, who was one of their supplemental picks, 102K. And they both seem to be battling it out for that halfback spot, kind of replacing Zach Williams. I think the concern here is that if neither of them are clearly ahead, there's a chance that they get moved in and out pretty quickly, or one's a sub risk. So, yeah, and wait and see on that as well. Now, I think other changes I made from this were, let's get rid of these two for now. And once again, nothing wrong with Dawson, and Caulfield could definitely come back in on the back of a good performance. But I think these are the two that I moved out. So let's put in Nick Dacos and let's talk about him. Now, the Pies game is actually one of the ones I watched the mids for, because I wanted to see Dacos's mid-craft. So I watched a quarter, just looked at stoppages and CBAs, didn't look at anything else from the game. And I did not see a particularly good midfielder, I must say. Oh, the other reason why is because Tom Mitchell was a watch, and just seeing what was happening with the Pies midfield. So that was one of my big watches from last week, and I made sure I carved out time to do that. But Dacos, I did not see as someone that was particularly good at the stoppage. I think if you were to go back and read his draft profile, the things that I would imagine stick out as weaknesses are his defensive game and his strength. And against the Blues in that intra-club, he was manned up against Kennedy, and both of those things stood out. He was continually trying to run offensively from the stoppage, and any time it was then in dispute, it meant that he was out of position. And so Kennedy was able to get a couple of clearances on the back of Dacos's positioning and just trying that attacking mindset. And I would say the other thing is he got bullied pretty badly. So he was trying to, I think, start a few meters off the stoppage or the CBA, and then kind of get momentum, run into it so he can really use his speed and get into space. And Kennedy was just putting an arm on him and kind of pushing around at will. And yeah, it really showed. I mean, Dacos just didn't look particularly good. He didn't look comfortable in that spot. And if I were only to assess a player based on that stoppage, he would not, like the stoppages I saw, he would not be in my side. This is the same reason why I didn't want to pick Crisp last year. His stoppage work just did not look good to me. And that's what I read on Dacos so far. He obviously is a very talented player, and his midfield numbers as a junior were very good too, but those weaknesses just stood out, and it's probably a bit of a tough benchmark just given how good the Blues midfield is. But yeah, worrying signs. However, with that said, he was able to rack it up for the rest of the game and was still one of the best on, just running around, calling for the ball, being a big seagull. And that type of talent, the ability to accumulate he has, like, is a little bit worrying. So he's in my side at the moment. I could be swayed back out of this pick depending on what I see this weekend. I could keep it. The only other consideration, he was young, but he didn't play particularly well on the weekend. We didn't get to see him with Ryan either, so we don't know how the kick-in split out is going to be. And Ryan's not playing this weekend either. So, yeah, that just... I can't get a good enough read on Hayden Young to actually put him in my side at the moment. I'd rather go Dacos and swap if I had to, or start with someone like Dawson and downgrade if I had to. Now, the other player that's come into a lot of people's sides is, of course, Jack Bowes, who was near best on for the Cats for the first quarter and a half, playing a role that we wouldn't typically go for, which is a half-forward role that pushes up onto the ball. He did get some CBAs, I want to say, in the second quarter, but not the best role. This isn't a role that we would normally approve of whatsoever. However, he's priced quite cheap, so we're not necessarily picking him as a keeper. We're just picking him to make money. And he was able to rack up in that role. And we have seen out of the Cats before players like Menegola and Duncan score really well off that half-forward flank, just given how Cats use it. It's quite different to other sides. So even if he starts there, he'll be pushing up to stoppages and being used at those points, which I think he can probably score well enough from. So there was concerning comments from Chris Scott around whether any of the debutants were going to be best 22, and we've got a hard side to break into. But people have been like taking that to be directed at Bowes. I don't think it necessarily was. I think it's just a boilerplate statement, like, I'm not selecting the team now, leave me alone type thing. So let's see how he goes this weekend, how he looks. But yes, from what I saw, I think he probably is one that we have to take. And then I think I've removed McKenna from my side now, and I don't remember who I've put in here. I'm guessing it's Caulfield for now, which means I didn't actually remove him. I removed Dawson and McKenna. So let's resave that. I think that's the new backline. So in the midfield, what's going on here? Well, Tom Mitchell has to come out, but we'll get there. The Dogs played another like intro just between themselves, so it's very hard to take anything out of that. I'm not going to talk to this much apart from some people had McRae best on ground, some people had Bont best on ground. Some people said English did very good, but I'm not reading anything. I want to see them play an actual game this weekend, so not going to move too much based on that. It's if these types of players get moved around, it's more just because of what's happening elsewhere rather than because of anything particular with them. Parrish looked very good for Essendon. I think he's still got upside. I mean, I've been a fan of his, and he's becoming like the pros pod pick. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter that are, SuperCoach people on Twitter increasingly falling in love with Parrish. So I'm not sure where the hype is coming from all of a sudden, but I've been on him for a little while, and I see myself sticking. Tom Green and GWS had the same problem the Dogs did, which is that they played an intro amongst themselves. So Green had 50 possessions playing against the thirds, which is great that he smashed them, but there's not much you can take from it, especially given Kelly and Cogs weren't playing. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Mitchell looks terrible, so he's gone. Like, there's just nothing else to say, but he's gone. We got to replace him with someone else. And, yeah, that's it. Hopper was fine. Ashcroft was fine. Phillips was fine. I mean, there was no Cunnington on that side, so what his CBAs look like will be interesting to check next week. Johnson looks like he's probably not best 22, so I think we're going to have to move him on. Constable was very good. I think he was like best on in the first quarter or so for Gold Coast, racked it up, and then was a lot quieter after that. But at 124k, if he does get that halfback role with the injuries that Gold Coast have, then yeah, I think he's probably one that we have to start and might even be a field option. I've seen a lot of people talking about that. He's very viable. And then Chesser is surprisingly ahead of schedule and played in the intro. So if he gets selected, that's a round one pick as well. Even if he gets managed in, I think you probably just want to hold him and until round 7, 8, 9 or whatever. So yeah, I think that'll be fine. Other rookies that I want, Judd McVee. So I've talked about him. I can't add him to the spot that I want him to. That's really annoying. I talked about him, I think, in my pods video, like the 5 pods, the low ownership. He's still only at 2% ownership, but he looks like he's in the prime spot to take over Salem's halfback role. Played it pretty well too, so I'm a fan of that pick for now as far as rookies go. I think the scoring potential is there. The job security seems okay. In the rucks, not really much to take out, as mentioned with English. The only thing to touch on with English is he copped a knock to his head, but he wasn't concussed as far as we know. But yeah, the thing that'll push English out is whether or not other good options jump out and jump up and jump around. And Wits looked very good. If you listen to any of George's content, you'll hear him talk about Wits for, I think, 90% of it and how good he looks. Grundy didn't have a good split with Gawn, so I wasn't really on it, but I'm definitely off it now. Nick Nat's dealing with an Achilles, so we're not touching him. Darcy is the one that had surprisingly more of a primary role split than people expected, so about 75% to Jackson's 25%. But the messaging from the coach is the same we heard last time, which is like, it'll be game to game, it'll be week to week, we don't know how much it'll be. So it sounds like they might play around with that, and that still scares me off as much as I'd like to pick Darcy. And then really there's no one else. I mean, Bruce was main ruck, but can you rely on him? Omac's going to have Fort in the side. Cameron got out-rucked. Well, Cox seems to be the number one at the moment. And then Hickey got injured. So it doesn't really leave much. Oh, and the Hawks, it looks like Reeves might be number one there, which, I mean, I don't know if you can pick Reeves at 360k, but yeah, there's really not much here at the moment. There is a couple of cheaper options that did come to the forefront though, and so one of those is McAndrew, which we're going to put in as a placeholder for now. He's 210 centimeters, so he's really tall. He's one of the tallest in the game. He was picked up by the Swans, I think, as a rugby union convert over to AFL, so he's only been playing for a handful of years, and his VFL numbers were not particularly good, average like 40 fantasy, so I don't think he was necessarily number one ruck for all of that as well. Like, Swans have got other people that are injured that do ruck stuff. Who am I thinking of? I'm thinking of McLean and Amadi. And then also you had Laddams ahead of him at the time. So Look, he's going to be tandem with Laddams. I'm not sure how good he's going to score here, but I like prioritizing cash gen over a loophole early rounds. You get a loophole anyway. It always happens. So I'd rather have the cash gen. If he looks like he's going to be best 22, then I'll most likely take him. But I'm pretty worried about both job security and scoring potential. So I may revert to a loophole here. In the forward line, I'd already swapped off Butters because of the AC joint injury, him sitting out. I'd moved to Cogs, but then Cogs sat out. So, look, Cogs is going to stay sitting in there for now just because of how soft that GWS fixture is, but definitely a watch to see if he gets up this weekend, what that niggle is, and how he plays prior to round one. If he's also no good, then it does raise some questions of, do I go down to maybe just the 3 premium forwards if I'm off both Butters and Cogs? Goulden popped up as a very interesting option, 70% CBAs for the Swans, but Mills was out of there, which I don't think is what they're going to do in the regular season. So we'll wait and see what happens this weekend, how they structure up. But if Goulden continues to get large CBAs and the talk is he's going to be a midfielder this year, don't mind Goulden as an option. The other one that popped up, which was a little bit cheaper, and I guess that's in consideration for 5 spot, would be Brun, who also had roughly 70% CBAs for the Cats. Don't mind him as an option either if he gets 70% again. If he's leading CBAs again this week and the talk is that he's going to be, one of their core midfielders, then interested there. It means that they're doing stuff like pushing Atkins out, who was good for them at the back end of last year. But yeah, we'll see. Anyway, what we'll talk about is R2golea. So R2golea, who looks like he's got decent job security now as a intercept defender in the Cats back line. Henry has got a foot injury. I think he had one last year as well, but it looks like he's going to be out in the medium term, which who knows what medium term means, but I think it sounds like probably 8 weeks to the bye. And that's more than enough time for R2golea to make some money in our sides. For those that owned Sam de Koning last year, you'll remember that the scoring was patchy, but the job security was good and ultimately made enough money in the end. And I think that's what we'd be looking to for R2golea as well. He's obviously mature-aged, which helps, and a mature body over someone like Sam. But I slightly prefer him to options like King or Allen at the moment, who are playing key forward. I'd rather have the defender that can intercept. Now, he played that role at the back end of the VFL last year and did it very well. He had something like 22 intercept possessions over the last couple of games. He was already something that was on my watch list, and for him to look like he's going to likely secure that role is a great sign for super coaches. So let's chuck him in. McLean, I've heard, was a little bit worrying just with his role, but mature age, 179k, should be best 22. I think you just take it anyway. And then on the bench, so Drury is going to have to go, and we're going to replace him with Green, who looked amazing in the Hawks interclub against themselves, but then was also good on the weekend as well. Looks like the dominant forward option for them at the moment, which is pretty crazy. Very productive in front of the scoreboard. Fun to watch as well. I think he's going to be one that's enjoyable to own. And then I've got Jay Davey, who, of course, is recovering from ACL. Who this ends up being, I'm not sure. Like, it could be his brother, who might get a game for round one. I wouldn't mind looking at someone like Jai Menzie, who kicked 3 goals again, and I think he's probably Essendon's leading small forward at the moment. But yeah, not sure who that other forward spot is going to be. It could be Comben if he gets up. Let's have a look at the ownership. Who's owned and cheap? Philippou, yeah, Philippou's one I guess you could look at. I'm not sure. He played forward. It's not really my jam. Sin is injured. Sheasel doesn't play a role that I particularly want to pay 200k for. Van Ruin looks like he's in the 2s. Joe Richards and Sidis don't like they're going to get games. Or that's Cheetahs, isn't it? Humphrey, don't like the role. Bruce, maybe you could look at if he's best 22. We'll have to see how they line up this weekend. Yeah, there's really not much here. So it's probably going to be something like Menzie or Owen Davey or a loophole. Not sure. All right, and then the last pick, because we do have room for one more, and that is, of course, going to be Lockie Whitford. No, just joking. It's Jack Steele. Should have enough money for Jack Steele. And that'll be the last midfielder pickup. So Yeah, this isn't. There we go, fix up. This is very mid-heavy, and it's got all of McRae, Parrish, Steele, as well as Bont, so and then Green, so 5 value mids. Kind of leaves me room for Oliver, Laird, and then one more value option throughout the year, which is maybe not the best place to be in. So we'll talk through what the alternative is to this shortly, but Steele looked pretty good on the weekend after a bumpy preseason. He is someone that could definitely produce a 120 at his score. So I'm looking for that value. He's someone that sticks out to me. I'm not sure if I want to start all of McRae, Parrish, and Steele, because if one of them fails, who am I trading them to? Like, is it really a Cripps or a Brayshaw or, a Josh Kelly, dare I say? A Lockie Whitfield type? Not sure. So, look, I think the thing that could change here is a couple. So we're relying still on like Caulfield, go to Gimby, and then maybe like or McKenna. They're like the 4 kind of cheapies I need to get up. Or Bose needs to look good. And if they don't look good, and Finn Callahan, who I do like and was also one of my pods under X% owned, looks good, then and he just signed an extension, so congratulations. He's also now up to 5%. He's moved up a fair bit. But anyway, Finn Callahan could end up going in the middle, and then we could move someone like Caulfield on to... this used to work, I swear. Dawson? Do I need to have the loophole for this to work? Who did I move out? Oh, I moved out the wrong option. That's why. It wouldn't be Steele. It'd be McRae. Sorry. So we moved out Steele. Did it again. We move out McRae for Finn Callahan. We get in Dawson for Caulfield, and then we still actually have enough room, I think, for McAndrew. Don't even need to drop to the loophole. $100 left. Whoa. Nice one. So that'd be the other version of the team. This is slightly stronger in defense, and then a little bit softer in the midfield, but I think this is still very strong. Now, I'm not really considering Sheed or Warple after their efforts on the weekend. Sheed, I'll have another look at. Warple was not good. Why is he getting games? But yeah, this is the side. This is how it's been updated. Still, obviously, another week of games to go, and these games matter more than last week, which matters more than the weekend before. So it'll change again based on that. And then, of course, once teams come in for round 1 as well, it'll change again. We're also going to get injuries between now and then. But I think it is important to show you how the team's slowly evolving and the types of tweaks that are making and why. And as you'll hear, it's role-based. For a lot of these, it's not necessarily like, oh, they just looked really good and I'm really keen to jump on them or anything like that. And for the rookies, it is starting to weigh up, like, are we getting the signs that they are best 22, that they're going to have decent job security? And then once we've got a good vibe on that, then figuring out what some of the scoring potential looks like and then basing picks around that. But that is the team as of today. I haven't done any discussion with Jordan, and I think that's going to happen later tonight. So I could see myself changing based on what they saw from the weekend's games. But I'm also interested to hear what you saw, what your eyes told you, and where I've got things wrong and what I should be updating and changing. So let me know down below. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.